Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Leo Hefner Show, 1,068 Ways to Get Screwed in Real Estate. We got a couple of sponsors that we're lucky to get. First one is blockbuyer.com. It is the only SEC-approved platform for non-accredited investors to invest with others in residential housing investments, crowdfunding for everyone. We're also sponsored by South Bend 7, an alternative investment fund backed by debt-free real estate. And by Trojan. Don't be a fool, wrap your tool. We're not really sponsored by them, but I'm working on it. I think it would be absolutely hilarious if they jumped on here. It'd be perfect, right? All right. So what are we about? The Leo Hefner Show is about real estate investing. A lot of the things, it's what should you not do? We're bringing in people who have so much knowledge and experience in the industry of real estate investing. And what we want is everybody's got wins, whether it's by fluke or by design. That's what most of us hear. Hey, I flipped a house and I made $100,000. I bought a 500 unit apartment building and turned around and sold it for $5 billion 2 weeks later. Those are great. Those are amazing. But what we actually want to talk about and what we want to hear are what are the pitfalls along the way? What are the hard lessons you had to learn to get to where you are today? If you could go back and tell yourself, hey, watch out for this, watch out for that. Next week, you're going to get this or that. What are those? What are those ones that gave you that financial haircut that really kicked you in the nads and made you question whether or not you were in the right business or not? That's what we're here doing. So I want to bring on our guest. Our guest today is Greg Dickerson. Hey, Greg.
How you doing?
Good. So let me tell you guys all a little bit about who Greg is. Greg is a serial entrepreneur. He's a real estate developer, a coach, a mentor. He's developed over $250 million in real estate. He's renovated hundreds of homes, commercial buildings, developed residential and mixed-use subdivisions, and has started 12 different companies from the ground up. If this guy doesn't have some good stories on things that he's learned the hard way, no, I'm fishing in the wrong pool for people here. Greg, welcome to the show. I'm happy to have you here. Thank you,
Leo. Hey, thanks for having me. I'm as you are speaking, I'm sharing this link so I can let my people know that I'm doing a live interview with you right now as well.
Oh, fantastic! Thank you so much. So along the way, let's start here. How long have you been in the real estate game?
Since 1997, I'm going to type here. Excuse me. I'm typing real quick.
No problem.
Sharing your link one last time. So I'm sharing it out through all my network, and it's hard to talk and post at the same time, but there we go. Okay, done.
Yes.
Share it everywhere. So 1997 is when I started my career. Started as a little remodeling handyman contractor. And built that into a $30 million building company in 7 years, started, a dozen other companies along the way, reinvested all the cash into real estate, and just kind of grew and scaled everything from there. So I retired the first time in 2004 when I sold that first company and became a full-time developer. And then, I've had a few businesses and companies ever since then, built them up, sold them off. But my main thing has always been real estate development and real estate investing.
Fantastic. So what did you do before real estate?
So right out of the high school, so I'm a natural born entrepreneur. So I was the kid out there hustling, cutting grass, raking leaves, just making money. I learned very young that if I needed money and wanted money, I had to go create it. My dad wouldn't give it to me; he made me go earn it, and then he would charge me for using his equipment, the lawnmower, and all that. So I learned the cost of doing business and how to create money, just through my physical labor and knocking on doors. And then worked all through high school, had a couple different jobs. Actually, I had a telephone solicitor job at one time, soliciting for the Fraternal Order of Police, which I thought was a nonprofit. Back then they might have been, but did that for a little bit. That was a lot of fun. I had a lot of success with it. I worked in a supermarket. That was one of my first real paying jobs. And then I did pizza delivery right before I joined the Navy. And then I went in the Navy right out of high school, did not go to college. I did get some training in the Navy. I did retail. So I had some business school training in the Navy. They send you to retail school because as a ship serviceman, we took care of all the retail stores on the ships, the vending machines, the barber shops, the laundry, all that. And then, I did 4 years. And when I got out, I was in California. I was in the Long Beach areas where I was stationed, but I lived in Huntington Beach, and went to work for a guy out there that was doing commercial construction. And I learned commercial construction from him. And, I also did restaurants on the side, worked in restaurants on the side there. And so that was the two things that I'd kind of always done before 1997 were restaurants and construction. I always had a little construction company on the side when I was in restaurants. And if I was in construction, I was, would work in restaurants on the side. So it's just the only two things that I ever did and that what I knew. And in 1997, I moved to a place called the Outer Banks of North Carolina. That's where the Wright brothers took off. Yep. And I moved down there. I was going to open a restaurant. And instead, I worked in the restaurants industry the first season there. And I was trying to get some work done on a house that we'd bought down there and couldn't get anybody to come do anything for me. And, this was 1997, 98 timeframe when things were booming and construction was really starting to boom down there. So I was talking to my neighbors and they're like, yeah, you just can't get anybody to do anything. And I had some construction skills. I'd never built a house, never really done a lot of real heavy remodeling, but I was handy. I could build decks, fences, I could do repairs, things like that. I had commercial construction experience. So I created this little company doing little odd jobs and handyman stuff. My first year, I did $250,000, just me, my truck and tools. And like I said, 7 years later, I was a $30 million building company, one of the largest building companies in the area, and building multi-million-dollar beach houses, developing commercial property, just doing all kinds of stuff.
Wow, what a story. I mean, that's great. Talk about moving someplace, taking action, and really putting the pieces together, and not being afraid to take on the bigger projects.
That's a big one. So fear is an interesting thing. And, fear destroys dreams and it stops greatness, And so the one thing I did do, I didn't go to college, but I am very highly self-educated. And one of the most important things that I did was I poured into my mind and my mindset and I built that. And, that kind of was built, from my dad with the hard work and just he was a military officer. He started enlisted, was frocked as an officer. So he worked his way up from the ground up. He didn't have a college education either. And so I learned hard work, I learned discipline, and I learned the power of a disciplined, strong mind. And there's some positives and some negatives to that, and how I learned those lessons. But the biggest thing was pouring into myself mentally in terms of, my mindset, but also my technical aptitude, learning business, learning real estate and things like that. I took courses and books, courses, just everything I could get my hands on. Never had any music going back to the day of the, cassette tape, Sony Walkman. And then it was the CD player. And then, it was the iPod, 80 gig iPod. Never had any music on any of that. It was always motivational stuff, personal, professional development, business, real estate, anything and everything I could get my hands on. So that's one of the ways I learned. And that's one of the ways that I put that fear down. But I do remember starting out, I wasn't afraid. Okay. Cause I was young. I didn't have a high overhead. It was, very little risk. My kids were young. I didn't need to make much money. So starting out wasn't hard. I did my first little job. And in fact, on my YouTube channel, I posted a video the other day about the first little project I did when I started that company. It was a little $500 deck addition on a restaurant. Took me a day to do myself. I might have and my net take home was probably $250, $300. But I remember after that thinking, man, I never have to worry about work again. Because at that time, if I could do that every day or, 2 or 3 times a week, I was set. That's all I needed. $1,000 a week, I was fine.
Yep.
And so it was easy for me to get started. But then as things grew and I had to take on people and I had to get my first office. I remember when I was going to sign a lease for an $800 office warehouse. It was my first one. I was kind of scared. I was like, man, am I going to be able to pay this rent? Am I going to be able to pay the lease? So that was a big step. And then I moved from that to a $3,000 a month office. And, then I started out building little spec houses. Then I went to $1 million houses. And I remember thinking, man, I've never built $1 million house. I've never built a $100,000 house, So when you're growing and when you're stretching and when you're reaching for those goals and those dreams, there's going to be times when the fear is going to hit you. But, the one thing that I always ask people, or I always ask people to think about is, what could you accomplish if you weren't afraid? And more importantly than that, what could you accomplish if you didn't know you couldn't do it? So that was the big thing for me. I always thought I could do anything I wanted to do, and I didn't know I couldn't do something just because I didn't have money, or I didn't have the education, or I didn't have the connections. I didn't know I couldn't do it, so I did it. It's that simple.
I've seen a couple of, I think there was a bumper sticker I saw the other day that was, what could you accomplish if you knew you couldn't fail? Mm-hmm. And then there's another one a good friend of mine says all the time, which is, what could you accomplish if you really didn't care what other people thought?
Mm-hmm. That's a big one. And that stops a lot of people there. I mean, literally, that's so funny is that, billion-dollar enterprises are probably stopped because somebody's worried about what somebody's going to think.
Right.
So I never even thought about that. I mean, I could care less what people think in general. I'm not, I don't want to hurt anybody. I don't want to harm anybody. I try to have good intentions. But in terms of somebody judging what I'm doing, oh, you can't do that, or you can't do this, I don't care. I don't listen to anybody. Now, I take advice and I take counsel from the right people. And that's another one of my sayings is be careful who you listen to, be careful where you get your advice and who you surround yourself with.
For sure.
And if you're the smartest person, you don't know enough people.
Exactly. That's the power of proximity right there.
Yeah. If you're the wealthiest guy in the room, you need a bigger room, so.
Yeah, you do. And that let's educate people real quick on the difference between advice and counsel. Counsel is usually what you get from people who have done what it is you're trying to do. Advice is somebody's opinion and thoughts about what it is you're trying to do, but who have never actually done that.
Yeah, you got to be real careful who you share your dreams with, because most people are going to want to squash them and shoot them down and tell you why you can't do something. And if you look at who that is and what they're doing, they're probably not doing what it is you want to do or where you want to be. And so you have to be very careful who you share your vision with, who you take counsel from, who you get your advice from. And you got to surround yourself in the business world. Now, I'm not saying cut off all your friendships and you can't have your family and friends. You can have them. Just don't share your dreams and your goals with them if they're not in alignment with what you're going to do, because it's just going to be, it's just going to be something you're going to be banging your head against because they don't get it. They can't comprehend it. They haven't been there. They haven't done it. The best thing to do is find people who are way beyond where you are. And that's a lot of how I got started, doing deals with and for people that were light years ahead of me. And some of them were very hard lessons. I got taken advantage of in a big way by somebody, but I learned so much through that. It ended up being worth hundreds of millions of dollars in deals, after that. But I got completely taken advantage of at the earliest stage of my career when I could have easily just thrown my hands up and given up.
Right. Well, let's actually address that and not necessarily maybe that story, but one of the things that I want our listeners to be able to get is the hard failures that you've come across. And, hey, one of our buddies, Duck Vong, he's one of the top surgeons in the nation, geriatric surgeons. He's watching us right now, says, hi. Awesome.
Yeah. Hey, Jerry, good to see you. I work with a lot of physicians, so it's good to have somebody in the field on.
So what we want to teach people is the hard lessons, the failure. You've had a lot. You got taken advantage of when you were coming up. What is the one thing that you can talk about? May actually even make you feel a little uncomfortable to talk about it. But what is that one failure that, I don't want to say haunts you, but when somebody says, hey, what's been your biggest loss and what did you learn from it? What is that story?
Yeah. So, in the one where I got taken advantage of, one thing that I always caution everybody is be careful who you do deals with. A lot of people think just because somebody is, way stronger than them financially or more sophisticated in business that they're going to be okay. And, a lot of times stronger people will pick on weaker partners because they can leverage that situation and take advantage of it when the pressure's on. So, generally there's two things about deep pockets in a deal. Number one, they're the first ones everybody goes after when things go wrong. Number two, they're the ones that can last the longest when, there's a capital call or when, things get tight or things don't work out as well as planned. And, I entered that venture. We were doing a number of spec houses together. We were supposed to be 50-50. He was supposed to put up the money. I was supposed to do all the work. And then one thing led to another where all of a sudden when it came time to wire the money, oh, well, I can't wire it right now. You go ahead and put it up and I'll pay you back. And so I funded the money. I signed on the debt when that was supposed to be my partner. He was supposed to do all that. We were supposed to build these things and sell them. Next thing I know, I'm signing on the debt. I'm putting up the startup money. And then we get them done, and he wants to keep them to avoid capital gains. I wanted to sell them because I needed the cash. I was in my building mode. And lo and behold, I didn't know it, but he turned around and refinanced them, pulled the equity out without my authorization or signature. And so I was off. I was out. So I was totally blindsided by all that. Didn't even know you could do that. In fact, that was in North Carolina, so I can't remember the legalities around it. But at the end of the day, it became a lawsuit situation where I had to choose whether or not to sue. And by the time we would have litigated the whole thing, it just wouldn't have been worth it at the end of the day. So that's one. Just make sure you know who you're getting into business with. And the one thing that never really triggered to me was this individual used to tell me about how many lawsuits he was involved in, suing this guy, suing that guy, suing this partner, suing that partner. And I knew him socially and we were friends. It never occurred to me, wait a minute, is that somebody I want to do business with if they're tied up in lawsuits everywhere?
There's I learned a very similar lesson like that too. So there's a friend of mine, he has something called Clues, Patterns, and Choices, CPC, and as my buddy Greg Reed says, so if he's going to go out on a date with somebody and, they show up 10 minutes late, that's a clue, right? Next time you're going to go out on that and they're 10 minutes late. Well, now it's a pattern. So now you've got a pattern. Now you can make the choice of whether or not you want to continue, seeing that person or not, based on their clues, their patterns, and their choices. You make the choice. I've had similar situations with partners where I've seen the clues along the way, and they were sharky. It was great. There was money on the table. There was blood in the water. They were going after it, right? I want that. That's a good partner. Well, until I was the blood in the water. All of a sudden, it's not so cool. You look back on that and you're like, wow, those were the clues. That was his pattern. What made me think I wasn't going to be the food at some point? So yeah, and it's, and it's even for people that find themselves in difficult situations. So if you're somebody who finds yourself in business disputes, in controversies, in arguments, in bad situations, in lawsuits, at some point you got to look in the mirror and go, why is this always happening to me? Am I the common denominator in the equation? So you have to have some, introspection, and you've got to have some perspective and take a look at that and make sure you understand exactly what's going down. But yeah, you need to understand somebody can be a good friend, and having a friend and doing business are two very different things. So I made that mistake early in my career by doing business with a friend, never did it again. So would not do business with family, would not do business with friends, wouldn't let them invest. Friends and family are always wanting to invest with me. I don't do that. Now, a lot of my partners and a lot of my investors have become friends, but we did business first. Right. So it's never the other way around, because, there's nothing that can ruin a relationship faster than a business deal, even when it goes well. It's really amazing how even a good deal can ruin a good relationship. Yeah. We're kind of in similar businesses. I'm more in the buy and hold game with House Bend 7. But it's interesting. You're halfway across the country and you're buying houses out there and everybody's your friend. And, I'm a friendly guy. I like to be liked, So you go out there and everyone's your friend, but, it takes a bit, and it's a little bit of an adjustment in your head. They're not your friends. You're a meal ticket. You're buying houses from them. You're providing income for them to feed their kids, put their kids to college. So yeah, after a couple of years of being able to work with these people, you can develop the friendships, but until you can't be very quick on making that a friendship, but you have to be very clear in that you're that meal ticket. You're the guy writing the checks and they're the one taking the checks. Yeah, exactly. So, that's the biggest thing. Be careful who you do business with. And, as far as the biggest loss, I did a restaurant venture one time and lost a huge sum of money real fast because I backed some people in a restaurant deal, totally trusted them, went against my gut, what I knew they should be doing or we should be doing. I kind of said, well, I'll let them run with the ball. They had a corporate background, with a very successful restaurant company before working with me. They were, high-level managers and they knew what they were doing. But here's the big differentiator too, is that there's a big difference between like a corporate employee and an entrepreneur. Yes. Just because somebody can manage a business or manage a corporation or has done something in, even with a Fortune 500 doesn't mean that they can be an entrepreneur in a startup or even an entrepreneurial venture, not even a startup. But, there's a big difference between being an employee and being an entrepreneur.
and being an owner. And I just didn't really think about that. And I mean, that venture, I don't know, I lost 600 grand in 8 months on a restaurant venture.
Yeah. That hurts.
But it's dollar cost averaging, right? So at the end of the day, I'm ahead of the game still. So, but yeah, that was a valuable lesson. I learned a whole lot about it, and it was something that I did not repeat.
Yeah, that's I think that's something that I learned fairly early on. I had a guy that was he was an analyst for a corporation, really good on spreadsheets and forecasting, and I pulled him in to try and help me do some real estate stuff, and it didn't translate. And not only that, after 5 o'clock, I couldn't get the guy on the phone anymore. Yeah. And, he just didn't have that spirit. And even when I'm like, hey, if we get this closed, we do this, I'm going to pay you X amount, and it can roll into more money than you're making now by a long shot. It didn't click. It was, it's just the employee mindset. Not everybody's got the entrepreneurial set. Not everybody has that, because it takes a special kind of person to go out and be okay. It's feast or famine. It's hunt and kill. If you don't,
it is. And one of the biggest mindset differences is people coming from the corporate world. The expense account is almost unlimited. Well, let's get this. We need it. Let's get that. We need it. As an entrepreneur, it's like, well, you really take inventory of what you really need and what you really don't need. So, there were a lot of expenses that were unnecessary. A lot of hooking their friends up and their buddies and stuff like that. So, anyways, but again, all of my difficult situations always flipped on the other side, and so much came out of it. I mean, so much came out of that experience. It was worth, tens of millions of dollars. And in fact, one of the lessons that I took away from that is stick with what's working for you and what you know. And what was working for me at the time was real estate development. That's why I was able to lose 600 grand, and it didn't bankrupt me. And it wasn't, even a significant hit on my net worth. It was a piece of it, but not all of it. And it was a minor piece of it. But the interesting part was, as soon as I closed that venture down, got rid of it, and refocused back on what I did, I made it back instantly on a deal, like within the next 6 months, one deal, and it was like, what the heck did I take my eye off the ball for? It just, so keep your eye on the ball. If something's working for you, you've got momentum, double down, triple down, focus on that, ride that wave and build it up, and, don't take your eye off the ball.
Yeah. Avoid the shiny object syndrome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I had a restaurant background. So, I mean, I knew what I was doing too. And, and it's still, I went against my gut and just, let them do what I knew wasn't right. And it was, at the end of the day, it was me. I was the leader. I was the one that, it was my idea. So I take responsibility for it. But, again, all good lessons.
Right. So, yeah, it's all great points. And, it sounds like every time you've had that you got caught, you learned a lot from it, came back, made the change, refocused, and have zoomed on, well beyond that now. We got a few more minutes left in the show. Can you tell us what you're working on now, and what has you excited? What's getting you out of bed in the morning?
Yeah. So for me, at the end of the day,
one more thing on that too. Before we get to that, I want to back up real quick. So you had iPods full of self-help and those types of guys on that you're listening to. What is the one that stands out that you think everybody should go listen to? Who is that?
Everybody's read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and that's the book I started with, that build businesses that generate cash flow to invest in other assets. A lot of people get real estate out of that book. What I got out of that book was that entrepreneurship, and I wanted to be Rich Dad, not Robert Kiyosaki. So I wanted to be the guy everybody was coming to, the guy that had all the businesses, the guy that was teaching, mentoring, and and was leveraging everybody else's talents. So That's who I became. That's how I did what I did. So there's so many, but it started with that for me, because I just didn't even know anything about business, about none of that. So that was the first instrumental book for me in terms of transforming my mind into that. And then it was The Power of Positive Thinking, Norman Vincent Peale, and Think and Grow Rich. So all three of those at the same time triggered that in me. And then there were books I read before that were business related. But in terms of mindset, growth, and understanding how to build businesses and leverage that for cash flow to invest in other assets and grow, those three right there were the biggest ones for me.
That was Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Think and Grow Rich. And what was the third one?
Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale.
I'm putting that in the comments so people can read and can Power of Positive Thinking. I have not read that one.
Yeah, that's a good one.
All right, now tell us what you're working on and what's getting you out of bed in the morning. What's exciting?
And then, of course, How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie. That one's obviously, one of the greats. But so impact. What gets me out of the bed at this point in my life is impact. I've always been somebody who has poured into others, developed others, leader, delegator, motivator. I love coaching people, mentoring people. Mm-hmm. That's how I became so successful so fast, was finding great people and coaching them to success. So, I coach and mentor people all over the country, all over the world. So helping people grow and scale so they can make an impact, that tickles me to death, is helping other people become successful more than anything else. I've done so many deals. I've done so many different things that, those are no longer exciting to me. They're fun and I like to do them, and I still do projects. And right now I'm working on some land development projects that to fulfill the demand in the residential market. But as far as, for other types of products, I love taking old buildings and making them new. I love doing adaptive reuse. That's a lot of fun. I grew up in the remodeling industry, so I love transforming old structures and refurbishing. But I like to do ground up as well. But really, at the end of the day, I'm after impact. I'm after helping people reach their full potential, helping them succeed. And, that's in all my businesses, all my deals, all my companies, and then the people that I'm coaching and mentoring. So impact is what gets me out of bed in the morning.
That's fantastic. So what else you came on the show. I feel that was super supportive of me and what I'm doing. Thank you. What can
Absolutely,
I do?
Yeah, my pleasure.
What can our listeners do to come back and provide value for you? What can we help you with?
Take this information that we put out there today and act on it. So that tickles me more than anything else. There's been a lot of stuff shared here that people can take and put into action. Pick up one of those books if you haven't. I can give you a dozen more. Anything by Tony Robbins, anything by Zig Ziglar, anything by Brian Tracy, anything by, Rich Dad. Robert Kiyosaki's got a bunch of other books. Read Sam Zell's biography. Pick industry leaders and giants and titans that you want to become. Read them and study them and put it into action. So, that more than anything else, that's what you can do for me, is if this helps one person move the ball down the road or take action and get started. Starting to get dark here on the East Coast. Take action and get started. Then, that in and of itself is what I'm after.
Fantastic. Hey, I'm looking at the link right here that you gave us for LinkedIn. It's Greg Dickerson. Is that correct?
That's it.
Okay, great. So you guys get out there and connect with Greg. He's a fantastic guy, super personable. He's a great guy to chat with on the phone also. He's at LinkedIn. Search for Greg Dickerson. I want to thank our sponsors real quick. We are sponsored by blockbuyer.com. Again, the only SEC approved platform for non-accredited investors to invest with others in residential real estate investments. Crowdfunding for everyone. We're also sponsored by South Bend 7, an alternative investment fund backed by debt-free real estate. And hopefully, Trojan, don't be a fool. Tap your tool.
That's good.
Greg, I want to thank you very much for coming on. I'll get this shared. I'll get your bio, into YouTube into YouTube in the comment section so people can read.
All my info's on my website, gregdickerson.com. It's easy to find. So go out there, check it out. And like I said, if somebody just take action on what we're doing here, and that helps me more than anything else.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon. I'd love to have you back.
Thank you. Anytime.
All right. See you later. All right, guys, that was Greg Dickerson. That guy's been is an absolute powerhouse, an amazing individual, giving back to everybody, and just really wants to get out there and help. He's a fantastic guy. I had the pleasure of meeting him over the past couple of months at a couple of online events, and he's been a delight. So please get out, support him, connect with him on LinkedIn, gregdickerson.com. Get out there and say hi. All right, till next week. We will see you guys later. Thank you very much for watching the show, and we'll see you next week. This is the Leo Hefner Show, 1,068 Ways to Get Screwed in Real Estate.